Hi, Richard Gladwell here for Sail World. We're here with Dean Barker. Dean, when we go back 5 months to July, what was running through your mind that day when you took out the AC72 for the first time? Were you shitting yourself? Or?
Yeah, I think for sure the very first sail, there was a lot of nervous people around. The boats I knew it was the first AC72 to go on the water, and it's with a completely new design, a very difficult rule to design to and engineer to. So the limits are very, very tight. So you have to push certain things, and a lot of the choices that we made in our design also pushed us into a boat which is it's very technical, it's very complex, and to get it out in the water for the very first time, you sort of obviously don't want to go out there and have any sort of major incidents. So a lot of nervous people around, and then also from the sailing team perspective, when you just get out there and first really understand what an AC72 can do.
So when you sort of stepped forward 4 days onto the day 4, when you started foiling in that sequence that got caught off North Head, what happened there? Was that a planned move, or had you been foiling earlier that day and days previously?
Yeah, the photos getting captured off North Head, well, that was certainly a rush of blood to the head. Sort of on our way back in, and I think it was just we were aware that some of our friends from the other teams had seen what we'd been up to earlier that day. We'd done a lot of foiling that day, and figured, well, it's not going to remain a secret for terribly much longer. So in reflection, it probably wasn't the smartest thing, but really it was inevitable that people were going to see what we're up to, and it was sort of quite a good series of photos that were published. They were the boat looked pretty cool coming up the harbour up on foils.
Grant Dalton says you're a pretty good race car driver. Does those sort of skills come in handy on the AC72?
Well, I guess if it good being relative to him, it's probably I'm not sure that's a high compliment, but no, I love car racing. It's certainly a passion that I've had for a long time. I used to race cars quite a bit, and I loved it. And I think the difference previously was that car racing was an adrenaline sport, and version 5 sailing or TP sailing it's more of a finesse. It's it's tuning and tweaking the sort of last nth out of the boat's performance. But getting into multi-hull sailing, it's a different world. It's multi-hulls are very, I guess, gross in terms that you're just out there trying to extract speed all the time, and so you're not dealing in tenths of knots, you're dealing in knots of difference when the boat's set up well or not. So I think if there's anything that's anywhere near close to the adrenaline sport or the same aspect that you'd have from car racing or multi-hull sailing, and certainly these AC72s definitely take you into that same realm.
When we spoke to Grant Dalton a couple of weeks ago, he talked about having to lean on the boat. What does he mean by that?
Well, the one thing that you learn very quickly, these boats are apparent wind animals. So they're just always generating apparent wind. Breeze is always in front of you, whether you're going upwind or downwind. And really, to make the boat safe or to extract performance, you've got to push the thing incredibly hard. You can't. There's sort of almost not a conservative approach in sailing one of these things. You manage a boat or these cats different ways as the breeze increases. You definitely take steps to try to make the boat safer to sail, but you find that the best way to actually manage the power and everything else is to sail the boat at its full performance as much of the time as you can, so that you keep the breeze in front of you, and when it's there, it's a lot safer than when it gets behind you.
We've seen this boat regularly do over 40 knots. Is it easy to sail at those speeds, or is it really white knuckle stuff from a helmsman's point of view?
The first couple of times that we sort of got up into the high 30s, low 40s, it was definitely a lot of tension, because you're just sort of pushing into the unknown. What are the loads like on the boat as you get into those higher speeds, and the foils and everything else. So you're obviously very nervous about the boat holding together, because if something goes bad at those speeds, it'll be pretty catastrophic. But the boat is incredibly well balanced. you obviously have to work very hard at those speeds to keep the thing sailing well, because you've got a very fine line of helming or steering angles, how the boat's set up, so you have to be very, very careful how you sort of find the right balance, but when the boat's set up and ripping along, it's quite exhilarating, and it's actually amazing how quickly you get comfortable with those speeds. It's sailing around at 20 knots now feels quite mundane, and you're always now looking just to try to keep pushing that speed higher and higher, and but at the same time we know that we're racing in a very confined course, so while the top speeds are nice, you have to make sure you can spend a large proportion of the time sailing at the high speeds.
So upwind, one of the things that's noticeable is that you've got a very relaxed sailing style, almost like you're sitting on the rail sailing a keelboat. How does the AC72 feel in those sort of conditions? Are you really steering for quite easily, or has the boat got a very narrow sailing groove?
The one thing which is interesting with these boats, they are very powerful, and so you can sail a variety of modes upwind, but it's really just like we have in the past. I think the upwind sailing is way more similar to any monohull sailing that you've done in the past. It comes down to having a very good relationship with the wing trimmer and the jib trimmer, so that you get the boat set up how you want to sail it at a certain time, and the combination of how you're trimming and steering the boat. If you get that sorted, then the boat becomes very easy to sail, and you definitely notice when it's in or out of the groove, and again, trying to keep it in the groove all the time is the challenge.
So a couple of Thursdays ago, the tornado struck Auckland. You guys are out around the back of Terry. Can you sort of run us through what happened that day and what the boat was like to sail? Was that the most extreme conditions you've been in?
Yeah, we've had the boat out now in some pretty breezy days, and I think, while we may not have raced the boat hard all the time in those conditions, we've definitely learnt what the boat likes and how it handles in different conditions. That particular Thursday you're talking about, we were out doing a bunch of testing, and we had done quite a long beat. It was a northeasterly, so we're sort of beating out towards Tirri, and all the while the seaway was building up, so tide had turned, so it was sort of a bit of outgoing tide out through the channel, and having done a lot of sailing around that sort of area over the last many years, it's you know that days like that the waves are going to get big, and we the forecast we had for the day was that the breeze was sort of going to sit in the low 20s most of the time, but because of the rain bands that were coming through, we sort of got a bit of mixing and ended up with one stage sort of very high 20s when we got out to Tirri, and it was sort of I think about the same time the guys in the chase got a phone call from Clouds, who's sitting here at the base, and said that, look, I think you probably need to get back to the base as quick as you can, because he was getting very nervous about the conditions, and I think at that point is when the tornado had just gone through West Auckland, and it's sort of one of those very strange sensations, because you're dealing with a boat where you can't just pull the sails down and tow the thing home. You've got to go dead downwind, and in pretty strong breeze, knowing that you can't really leave the thing stuck behind Tirri, because it's only going to get worse, and it was it turned out to be one of the most enjoyable sailing rides I've ever had. We got back to Rangi Light pretty quick, and the boat was incredibly well behaved. We had literally had a blast on the way back. It was quite an amazing experience.
So there's been a lot made of foiling, and it looks very spectacular, particularly on a boat this size. What's the sort of real edges to it in terms of upwind and downwind? Is it the speed demon that everyone thinks, or has it got a lot of downside to it?
Well, I don't know if that'll be answered until middle of end of next year. We're operating with a very blank sheet of paper, and really. There's different schools of thought between the different teams. We've got Artemis right now, who sit there as a very conventional style boat with with lifting boards, but with no intention of foiling their boat. Maybe they'll change with the second one, who knows? But got Oracle, who sort of probably described as best as probably semi-foiling, where they're not really achieving good stable flight. And then there's obviously ourselves and Luna Rossa, who are fully foiling and foiling quite stably. And the thing with foiling, it's not a free lunch. You have to pay for it somewhere, and so we know that upwind we give away a lot for hopefully gaining a lot downwind, but it still remains to be seen whether it's the benefits are always there. So we've obviously done a huge amount of research and design. Having had the ability to sail a boat for 30 days, we've been able to experiment with a lot of different configurations, and so I think we know where the strengths of our boat are right now relative to what we know of the other teams, or what we can sort of figure from the recon that we've done on the other teams. But really, until you line up with another boat, it's almost impossible to say.
Two questions off the back of that. I mean, when I was out there was a performance analyst sitting in the back of the boat with a laptop. Is he going to be a permanent feature in the crew, or how do you make that decision as to what angles you're sailing and whether it's a foiling option or not?
All the testing we do, it's about learning the boat, and in the end it's going to have to be second nature, because you have to have a helmsman and 10 guys that basically are involved in the mechanics of sailing the boat. It's the boats are undercrewed, and you just don't have enough power to deal with all the different functions on board. So you don't have space to carry a navigator, say, or even Ray, who's obviously on board as a tactician. He spends a fair chunk of his time involved in crew manoeuvres, either grinding or helping out with different parts of a manoeuvre. So the guys have had to adapt and become a lot more, rounded sailors to be able to control the different functions on the boat, and we have to we've had to adapt with it.
So we're now a few days before Christmas, when almost the cycle's gone back to where it was pre-July. What's going to happen with the SL33s? Are you going to keep doing the science experiments in them, or are you going to just concentrate on racing and staying sharp?
We're going to chuck the 45 back in the water in January and do some sailing with the Luna Rossa guys when they're not out in their 72. We'll probably do a little bit of sailing in the 33s. We've had a couple of days this last week just to get out and test a few more things. But the issue we've got now is that we're just running out of design and lead time to actually design and build anything new. We're really in the stage now where we have to narrow in on final sort of configurations, because to build a dagger board is 2 to 3 months. It's not something you can sort of go through that design process now of designing and building something for the 33 and then going and testing and analysing that, and then going and then building another iteration for the 72. We sort of have to now trust our tools, all the validation that we've managed to do over the last couple of years, and in the end you are going to make a few blind leaps of faith to in the final direction you go with to be ready for San Francisco. And so we're armed now with 30 days of good sailing under our belts. We know a lot more about AC72s than what we did 6 months ago, but we know we've still got a hell of a lot to do, and not very much time to do it. And so we're definitely in a process now of trying to hone in and refine the areas that we think will give us the best chance of winning.
Okay, well, thanks very much. All the best.